Hi, Steve Stolberg here with pinup number 19, one of the January rewards in my Patreon subscription. This time I'm doing a standard of the pinup tradition, the Naughty Nurse. But I'm also doing Akali from League of Legends, taking advantage of the fact that she's sometimes depicted dressed as a rather warlike nurse. Here's the references I used. And let's begin. Pick a median color, or as in this case, the color that will dominate the background. The reason I made it green is to contrast and set off the reds in Akali's outfit. This one's about 20 minutes, speeded up on average about 8 times. I usually do about 6 times faster in the beginning, because it's more fun to see sketching, and stuff changes quicker when you're sketching, and then it's less fun because stuff changes slower towards the end when you get into the itsy bitsy tweaking, which inevitably happens, where I may go up to 10 times faster, so I guess average around 8 times faster. Some parts weren't recorded, so totally I think I spent about 4 hours painting this one. Not too long, in other words. But I actually don't have that much time to spend much more, because at that stage I've already spent quite a lot of time on the dummy sketch, which I always prepare first. I need to know what I'm doing. I can't experiment back and forth while I'm recording. So I already decided on the pose is similar to the photo, but I removed her shoes and made the legs longer, as you can see, and I also changed the pose of the other foot here. It's more like it's caressing her other leg, when in the original photograph it was just sitting there doing nothing, just hanging in the air. And I think this makes a more logical impression. I try to work like a movie director, directing an actor on the screen. This is a scene, even if it's not moving. I like to think of it as a snapshot from a movie, and so to me it all has to make sense. Her motivation, her clothes, her pose, her expression, the lighting, the environment, it should all tell the same story. In this case it's a very simple, straightforward story. Sexy nurse breathing, I don't know what that gas is that you'll see later. There's a gas canister in there and she's been sniffing something. Originally the reference from my gas canister had a green top, but I thought that was I wanted red. Green is oxygen. I don't know what red is, so it could be poisonous, it could be helium, it could be whatever, but I was kind of imagining something like laughing gas or another kind of gas that makes you feel sexy. I don't know. There is no such gas, but that's where the limit of my need to stay logical runs. I would I will take some liberties with logic to make a better image, to make a better visual impact. So that's the scene, and I tried to make her look a little like deer in the headlights, caught a little bit, like she was just sniffing a little bit, whatever the gas is, and she just removed it from her mouth, and she's looking at the camera like, oh hi, I don't know, whatever. But you gotta try to imagine these things. You gotta try to put yourself into the scene, or try to feel the movie that this is taken from, if you know what I mean. I mean, there is no movie, but you know what I mean, right? I'm using a black line here, as you can see, to roughly sketch in black. In a moment I'm going to start drawing cleaner lines on top of this, because for this one I decided to go for this particular look, which is anime type, cartoon type inspired, where you have outlines around everything. I'm going to jump forward a little bit. It's taking shape. Now here we go with another layer first. I find it most convenient to make 2 layers when I start doing this. One with plain white on it, which I then minimize. I take down the white a little bit by taking down the opacity of the layer a little bit, so I can see the sketch through, obviously. And then I have a black line. I have a nice smooth pen, black, and then on top of that I also add the Nezumi lazy mouse smoothing on top of that, so you also have to zoom in. I'm not sure if you've noticed, but if I was to draw these lines, which I have tried and become irritated with many times, zoomed out, like say 50% or 30 or whatever, 60, anything other than 100, they will be stepped, they will be zigzaggy. At least this is what my system does. The same thing happens in the office, and I've heard other people have the same problem, so I think it's just a matter of the way the Wacom works with Photoshop. I think they haven't solved that yet. I don't know if anybody's even working on that problem, but it's a big problem. You should be able to draw. The line should look exactly the same whether you draw it zoomed out or zoomed in, but it doesn't. So here I am zoomed in 100%, using the lazy mouse to get clean lines. Now later what I'm gonna have to do is to thicken these lines or strengthen them by doubling. I could, the simplest way is to just double up the layer on top of itself, because when I make my pen pressure sensitive, it doesn't really reach 100% black ever, because that's just the setting that I have. You could use a different setting, of course, but it's just as easy to just double up on the layer after you're done. Now I'm not going to show you this whole process. There's going to be a little jump in a bit, but I could mention that when you're doubling up on that layer to get your stronger black lines, when you're done with everything, you have the control. You have the possibility to control by erasing the second layer. Or you could do 3 layers or whatever, but you could pull the opacity down on the second layer. There's lots of different things you can do, so you have more control instead of trying to reach the 100% blackness from the beginning. At the start, you can have more control that way. So here's the jump I talked about. I finished with the lines and now I'm doing the flat colors. Each color is on a different layer. I try to order them logically as much as I can, one behind the next. If a skirt is in front of a leg, I try to put the skirt layer over the leg layer, and so on. It's quite simple and self-explanatory, although it can get a bit complex if you have many characters in the scene or many items of clothing or overlapping items of clothing or whatever. And then after that I start to shade each layer one by one, start to paint in darks and lights. And you can see here the shadow is more bluish. So I mean, I almost never ever try to create the shadow with pure black, like airbrushing black on something, even if you're very gentle, will almost invariably make it look disgustingly dirty. And I did the same thing with the highlights. It's a different hue and a different color. It's a colder color, less saturated. So what remains is the middle color, which is the warmest color of the three: highlight, middle, and shadow. The middle color is now left only in the transition areas between the highlight and the shadow, if you see, which is what you should try to do. I've called it the Terminator in other videos, the transition point between the lit side and the unlit side of any object. The Terminator needs to be warmer, and this is one way to accomplish that. Here also you noticed I added even more hotness, warmness to certain regions. For instance, between the legs there, I imagine light bouncing from one skin tone to the other skin tone, and that usually creates an extra warm color. And you can see here I'm colorizing the lines. The way to do that is, the simplest way is to take the flat colors that you've already created and copy them and place that layer on top of the lines and have them colorize, be the mode to be colorize or color. The lines can't be 100% black in that case, so you have to drop the lines down to a white layer. You have to put that to multiply. Then you have to raise the lines up just a little bit from pitch black. That way you can they can take on a strong color. Of course, that messes with your black line layer, so just copy your black line layer first and save the original somewhere. Here I'm just detailing the face a bit, the hair. And the dress. The colors of the dress are very simple. They are nearly black, but I did shift towards the blue a little bit in the shadow color, but not as much as on the skin. The medium color was neutral. I added a tiny bit of blue in the shadow. For the highlight I just used plain white. Now the stockings. An interesting note with the stockings: the stocking color is cold compared to the hotter skin color. white is always seen as colder than skin, in this case gray versus pinkish. So where there's more stocking and less skin, the color should be colder, and vice versa. Since the stockings aren't perfectly form-fitted, they will stretch more in some places. So less stocking, more skin, sorry, and a warmer color. The same will happen as the form angles away from the camera, our point of view. So as you can see, the foot is cooler in color because it stretches the material less, and all the edges of the leg are also cooler because you have more stocking along the edges, visually speaking, along the line of sight. The warmest area is her higher knee right here, because this knee is more bent than the other. It's stretching the material more, so you have more skin visible here and less skin visible here, for instance. Less skin visible here. So this is really easy to accomplish, but you just gotta know what you're doing. Just a touch of airbrush, pink color here, white color here, or gray, Very easy to do, as long as you know where to place it. And how you know where to place it is, it's basically physics. You just gotta think about it, and you could also look at reference. Reference helps in this case, but what helps me more in this case with the stockings is thinking logically about it. Where will it stretch more? Where will it angle away from the camera? Later I added more, shall we say, rainbow coloring to the dress, which is kind of boring now. As I mentioned before, it's just white for the highlights and neutral for the mid color. So something that a lot of cartoony styles do is to add like pale blue, pale pink into regions like that. Just exaggerating color changes which happen in real life, but just exaggerating them like 10 times, 100 times more than they would be in real life. I'm usually a bit timid when it comes to that kind of stuff, but I'm trying to expand my horizons and trying to do that more. You can see her hand. That's the type of thing I'm talking about. It's quite blue on one side and quite reddish on the fingers. Her shoulder also, a little bit too much. I think I changed that later. This is the finished piece right here. And you can see a slightly more polished version in the package that I'm posting for Patreon. That's it. Thanks for watching. Bye.